I've never been so offended in my entire life. I'm so upset. I am so upset. Nicola Sturgeon, rapist Isla Bryson, almost certainly faking trans status. It's not up to you. You don't get to decide that, Nicola. How dare you deny this person's experiences? A double rapist who was sent to a women's prison last week is almost certainly faking being trans, Nicola Sturgeon has suggested. How offensive. What a turf. What an absolute turf. Isla Bryson was convicted of attacking two women while known as a man called Adam Graham. One of the victims later said she was sure that Bryson was pretending to be trans to make life easier. Bryson was moved from Cornton Vale to the male prison estate after a public outcry. A pause was in his. The trans person in male prison. He's gonna have a great time. She's gonna have a great time. My God, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to be offensive there. A pause was subsequently placed on the transfer to women's jail of trans inmates with convictions for violence after it was reported that another transgender woman, Tiffany Scott, who was convicted of stalking a 13-year-old girl before her transition, has a history of violence, was due to be moved to a female prison. The Bryson case was raised at First Minister questions by Scottish Conservative leader Douglas Ross on Thursday. Mr Ross says, I believe a double rapist, anyone who rapes a woman, is a man. They cannot be considered anything else. When a man rapes two women, we don't think that he should be considered a woman just because he says so. We should call out criminals like this who are abusing the system. Adam Graham, who wants to be known as Isla Bryson, raped two women. He is an abusive man seeking to exploit loopholes in the government's current policy. Loopholes that we've all been saying for a while would eventually happen, but, hey ho, why listen to us? Mr Ross asked the First Minister, is this double rapist a woman? I actually do like Douglas Ross, but purely because he's constantly holding Sturgeon's feet to the fire. She hates him. She hates him so much. Miss Sturgeon initially said she did not have enough information to say whether Bryson's claim to be a woman was valid or not. I mean, even at reading the headline, you could kind of tell that he's at it. He's absolutely at it. She added, I don't think Douglas Ross and I are disagreeing here because what I think is relevant in this case is not whether the individual is a man or claims to be a woman or is trans. What is relevant is that the individual is a rapist. That is how the individual should be described, and it is that should be the main consideration in deciding how the individual is dealt with. That is why, of course, the individual is in a male prison, not in the female prison. These are the issues that matter. Mr. Ross went on to read a quote from one of Bryson's victims who says, I don't believe he is truly transgender. I feel as if he has made a mockery out of them using it. As far as I'm concerned, that was to make things easier for himself. I'm sure he is faking it. And that's what he looked like before his face tattoos and all that stuff. The First Minister responded, my feeling is that is almost certainly the case, which is why the key factor in this case is not the individual's claim to be a woman. The key and, in fact, only important factor in this is that the individual is convicted of rape, the individual is a rapist, and that is the factor that should be the deciding one in decisions about how that prisoner is now treated. And as far as I was aware, rapists went to prison. And rapists obviously go to a male or female prison, depending whether or not they are male or female. That is how she's just sitting there as a rapist. A rapist isn't its own gender, Nicola, Big Nicky. Right? It's not. This person has said that they are female, and who are we to deny their claim? To do so is bigoted. In fact, it's quite bigoted. I don't know why the SNP are being such turfs right now. Right, Miss Sturgeon went on to say that it was really important to look seriously at the issues thrown up by the Bryson case, adding that in doing so, we bear in mind two things. Firstly, as I've said, that we do not further stigmatise trans people generally. I think that is important. But secondly, that we don't cause undue concern amongst the public. Miss Sturgeon added that there were exemptions under the current UK equality law that even if it wanted to, this Parliament couldn't change. Even if it wanted to, this Parliament couldn't change. That enabled trans women to be excluded from some single-sex places. Because it turns out, I know this sounds weird and all that, but you don't have a right to just be anywhere you want. You don't. If people don't want to work with you, people don't want to work with you. Loads and loads of people don't want to work with me because of who I am. I don't sit there like, no, you must. I have a right to your time, labour, property in place. I don't do that. I just go and find somewhere else. I mean, besides, why would I want to work with people or be around people that hate me? I kind of like avoid that. But then instead, what some people do is they instead force the people that hate them to capitulate to them using the state and institutions as a club to do so, and then make the people hate them even more, and then everybody's sort of scratching their head as to why is there all this hate? Well, turns out when you repeatedly punch people, they don't like that. The Scottish Prison Service has operated in a form of gender self-identification since 2014. As Justice Secretary Keith Brown put it on BBC Radio Scotland on Monday, if somebody presents as a trans person, then we accept that on face value. It is that face value approach that appears to have caused such difficulty in the cases of Tiffany Scott and especially Isla Bryson, the double rapist, who was initially remanded at Cornton Vale Women's Prison. While identifying as trans does not give any prisoner the right to decide where they are jailed, the system does take their acquired gender into account. Critics say that's open to abuse by predatory men, but ministers say that robust risk assessment should prevent that and may ultimately have excluded Bryson and Scott from the female prison estate. Except it didn't. Like Tiffany Scott was sent to Cornton Vale. Like, they were put in the female prison. Nothing prevented it. A double rapist of 2 women was put into the women's prison. These robust, see if people didn't make a big public stink about this, if people didn't actually kick off about this person would have remained in the women's prison until something awful happened. So, no, the robust risk assessment didn't work. You still put a fox in the chicken coop, right? Just because a fox says it's a chicken, When asked about the Bryson case on Monday, Justice Secretary Keith Brown told BBC Scotland's The Nine, "We have to accept people identify, in this case, as women. I think that is commonly accepted, and that's the starting approach that we take. And obviously, no one at all is going to abuse that or exploit the system in any way. Of course. Aren't we very fortunate that everybody on earth is honest?" But Mr. Brown stressed that this did not mean that they would automatically have the right to go to a female prison, with a rigorous risk assessment being carried out first. However, when asked earlier in the week why the gender claims of prisoners were accepted at face value, Miss Sturgeon said, "That is the case for trans people, but if you take the 2 cases that have been in the media, from my point of view, it's not so important what gender they are, it's the crimes that they have committed." Now, this is a very common thing that Nicola Sturgeon does. There was recently an hour-long interview that she done where, politicians, where whenever you ask them a question that they don't want to answer, or they don't know how to answer it, or they know that their actual opinion will be extremely unpopular with voters, they try and deflect it. Right, you see them doing it. They parody it all the time on TV. Nicola Sturgeon does that with almost every single question that she's asked. And I've watched lots of footage of her. I don't think I've ever seen Nicola Sturgeon actually answer a question. I genuinely don't think I've ever seen it. See if you see, because the guy is, there's so many interviewers hold her to the point because she's so bad at it. I think it was, what's his name? Is it Neil Andrews? I think that was his name. The guy that used to be with GB News, and then he left because it was turning too much like Fox. Like that guy, he held her to task, and basically interviewers end up just having to ask her the same question over and over and say, "Stop avoiding the question," and then she'll go, "I'm not avoiding the question. The answer is," and then she'll say something that doesn't even remotely answer the question and totally deflects off onto other subjects, because she's an extremely dishonest person, like Nicola Sturgeon. I know, a bit of a moot statement to make about a politician, but Nicola Sturgeon, she is She's at the top of the class when it comes to professional liars. Bryson was found guilty last month of raping 2 women in 2016 and 2019 before she changed gender after being arrested. Sorry, there was a point I wanted to make earlier that. She's saying, "That's the case for trans people, the 2 cases, blah, blah, blah. But from my point of view, it's not important what gender they are. What is important, blah, 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 is no, what is important is what gender they are, Nicola, because the entire point of this argument is, should a trans person who then identifies as female and therefore changes their gender be put into a female prison that matches their supposed gender?" That is the literal central focal point of this debate. And you're saying that this, so should someone just saying their gender get them into whatever gendered prison. And you're trying to say, yeah, the point is not gender. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Nicola. And in that interview, you were asked that over and over again, and you still did not answer the question because you're just a barefaced liar. While awaiting trial, she enrolled in a beauty course in Ayrshire College, where she was known as Annie, and she remained there for 3 months before being asked to leave. Interesting. Her classmates were almost exclusively female and much younger than Bryson and were not aware of the rape allegations. One former classmate told BBC Scotland last week that she felt violated after learning of the crimes that Bryson had committed. Scottish Government legislation aimed at allowing people to self-identify their legal sex has been blocked by the UK Government over its potential impact on equalities laws. The UK Government said during a Westminster debate on Thursday that it was up to the Scottish Government to bring forward a new gender recognition reform bill that addresses the legal issues which causes the bill to be blocked. And now this is the thing with this as well, is it should be really easy to go and change your gender with the government. That's the point. You should just be able to submit a wee form and change your gender. Why do you need to change your gender with the government? What sort of preferential treatment do you get and stuff like that? I mean, when it comes to divorce courts and the prison system and stuff like that, women have a much easier time. They have a much easier time with jobs and stuff like that as well, because hey-ho, diversity quotas. You don't even need to be good anymore if you're one of the protected classes. You don't actually need to be good at your job. You just need to be born a certain way. Are you female? Are you black? Are you an immigrant? You're a refugee? Are you gay? Blah, blah, blah. I know so many people that now write bisexual on their job applications and have this. I wish I got the guy to like collate the data, because I know a few people that have done it. He was sending CVs out absolutely everywhere. He was getting absolutely no luck back because hey ho, Scotland has no jobs. See, as soon as he started writing bisexual, the amount of responses he was getting from CVs and interviews he was getting, he said it nearly tripled. So I'm just saying, anyone that's applying for a job, when in Rome, suck a dick. Just say that you're bisexual, and you'll have a higher chance of getting a job. And then nobody will question it if they see you dating women or men or whatever your actual preference is. Just say you're bisexual. You have a higher chance of getting a job. The UK Government said during a Westminster debate on Thursday that it was up to the Scottish Government to bring forward... in fact, I've just read that. Oh yeah, also the thing I was going to say as well is the government demands that you must know your gender, so that's a government regulation that they've put in place. The government is like, yeah, okay, you will be registered as male and female in their little bureaucratic system. Now they're trying to fight to bring forward a bill based on their own bureaucratic system to fight against the problem that they caused. A common thing among the government where they will cause a problem directly. You can see it's them. They did it. Things like inflation, the housing crisis and all that type of stuff. It's all them. It's their own regulations and the bullshit that they're doing. They will then say, we used our power and it kind of like fucked things up a little bit. But to fix the problem, we're going to put forward a bill that gives us even more power to fix the problem that we caused in the first place. It's a con, and you keep fucking falling for it, don't you? Everybody keeps fucking falling for it. Cabinet Office Minister Alex Burghardt said that the decision to block the legislation using what is known as Section 35 order was used very carefully and reluctantly in order to preserve the balance of powers between Scotland and England. A very contentious subject. SNP MP Patrick Grady said that the UK government should publish its own amendments to the bill to make it acceptable, and claimed that the Conservatives were undermining the Scottish Parliament. A backbench Conservative MP said he believed the legal arguments used by the government for halting the legislation were shaky, because just Scotland going to do what Scotland does. They're just going to pass the law. They don't care. Even if it's not what people actually want, especially when it came to things like the hate crime bill, 7 years in jail just for possessing a meme on your phone, not even sending it to anyone, just possessing it. Literally, no one wanted it. You even had the Law Society themselves, like lawyers all over Britain coming out going, what the hell are you doing? What the hell is this? This would literally make Scotland the most authoritarian place in all of Europe, if you exclude the likes of like Belarus and stuff like that. But, nah, hey-ho. We got it anyway. No one wanted it, but we got it anyway. And that's how governments work.